Darkest Hour is a new film from director Joe Wright that tells the true story of the darkest hour for Great Britain when Winston Churchill was faced with the prospect of imminent invasion and destruction of Europe. And what is he going to do here? Is he going to give in to his subordinates to make negotiations with the enemy, or is he going to make a stand and push back and say, no, we're going to fight this and we're going to win this war? And going into this film, I was very looking forward to seeing it. It was another film like Hostiles I talked about earlier this week that I really wanted to see last year back at the London Film Festival, but it wasn't being shown at the festival for some reason. But I finally got the chance to see this movie, and in short, I loved it. I thought it was really great. The common criticism I've heard is that, oh, the performance by Gary Oldman is amazing and the film isn't as good as performance. I kind of agree with that. But the film wasn't bad. Gary Oldman's performance was just absolutely spectacular. I still thought the film was good, it just wasn't on that same level as Gary Oldman and the performance that he was giving. But I don't necessarily agree with the criticism of, the film wasn't actually that great. It was a great performance, but a not so great film. No, I think it was a really good movie. It's just the performance was like by far the best part of it and really carried the film and really made the film. And you can make the argument of, just one great central performance from the lead actor isn't enough to make a great film. But in this case, it's like a character study. It's a one-man show. It's all about Winston Churchill and it's all about Gary Oldman's performance as the character of Winston Churchill. So it is a massive contributing factor to how good this movie is. And so obviously right at the top here, I have to talk about Gary Oldman. And obviously he's amazing. I mean, he's probably the best actor working today who hasn't got an Academy Award. It's kind of absurd to look back on his spectacular filmography and this catalogue of work and all the amazing performances that he's given. And he's really like a complete chameleon when it comes to acting. Every time he pops up in a movie, he looks completely different. He not only transforms himself into the character he's playing, from an emotional, performance standpoint, but from a physical standpoint as well. Every time he pops up in a movie, he just looks like a different person. And obviously the same thing applies here as Winston Churchill, but not just because of the fact that he's in these layers of makeup and prosthetics. Anybody's going to look different and come across different, in a fat suit and makeup and all of that. But it's not just the fact that he looks different because of the makeup and the costume, it's because of the performance he's giving as well. It's because of how amazing Gary Oldman is as an actor that you're able to buy him in the role of Winston Churchill. It's not just the fact that he looks like Winston Churchill, it's just that he embodies Winston Churchill. He emotes as Winston Churchill. You genuinely believe you're watching Winston Churchill. And there are times when you can see his eyes and you can see it's Gary Oldman. Toward the beginning of the movie I was like, I can see it's Gary Oldman in there. But he's so good, it just gets to a point where you just forget about that, and it's not even like you're not even thinking about it because you're tricked into thinking you're actually watching Winston Churchill. He is that good. He doesn't just look like him. You genuinely believe you're watching the real guy. It's not like you're watching an actor pretending to be a character. It wasn't like I was watching Gary Oldman doing an impersonation or doing an impression of Winston Churchill. It was like I was actually watching the real Winston Churchill, and that's when an actor is deserving of an Academy Award, in my opinion. When they are so good, they disappear into the role so much that it's not even like you're watching an actor, it's like you're actually watching the person they're playing. And if this film doesn't get Gary Oldman his first Oscar, I'm gonna hit the roof. I'm gonna be so annoyed. And yes, there's a Daniel Day-Lewis film this year, Phantom Thread, and Daniel Day-Lewis is a great actor, but he's got a lot of Oscars. Gary Oldman has never even gotten one Oscar. And I feel like it's time, and if this isn't the film to get him his first Oscar, I don't know what will get him an Oscar, because he was spectacular in this film. Like I said, it was really a one-man show. It was all about him and his performance as Churchill, and he just knocked it out of the park. And like I said off the top here, it's true that everything else isn't as good as Gary Oldman, but that's not a knock on the film. It's just a testament to how amazing Gary Oldman is. But I really did like the film as well. I really like what Joe Wright did with this movie. You could tell, if you're familiar with Joe Wright and his work, I think he did Atonement, he did Anna Karenina, he did some of these other period piece films. You can tell when you're watching it, it's a Joe Wright film. And I like how he shot this film. It wasn't just like a generic, movie, because there was a danger going in that this could have just felt like a TV movie, because there's a lot of talking. It's about just Churchill and these politicians, whereas Dunkirk, for example, is telling the same kind of story, but that's a lot more of a visceral, visual film. This is more of just like a talking film, so there was a danger it could have just felt like a TV movie, but it didn't. It did feel very cinematic, and I really like what Joe Wright did with this movie from a directorial standpoint. Like, it's not some phenomenally directed movie, it's not one of the best directed films of the year or anything, but I like what he did. I liked how he shot this film. There's a lot of uses of tracking shots from us seeing it from the point of view of Winston in the car and him looking out at the streets, the people, or a bird's eye, aerial shot of him looking out at the plane, at the battlefields below. And there's a lot of those kind of long POV kind of tracking shots implemented in the film, and I really liked that. That was a nice little touch there. And probably the best thing about this film from a directorial standpoint is that I felt like it really immersed you into that time period. It really felt like I was there, because again, there's another danger with these period piece films that when you're watching it, it could, potentially feel like you're just watching a recreation and reconstruction of past events, and it doesn't feel genuine, it doesn't feel believable and convincing. But that was not the case at all. It very much felt like I was thrown back, transported and immersed into that time period. It very much felt like I was there in that actual time with these people, experiencing these events with them, and I thought that was really great. It didn't feel like I was watching just a reconstruction and a retelling of past events. It felt like I was actually there in that time period of the 40s with Winston Churchill, with these guys, and it was so much more immersive and so much more kind of engaging for an audience member because of that. And one of the best things about this film, and obviously I'm British, it's telling a British story about British characters and British time, but it's also a very kind of universal film. I feel like it's a film that, everyone will get something from, that will, it will hit home with everyone, because, it is, like I said, dealing with British characters and a British story in a British time, but it is dealing with big universal concepts, like dealing with the notion of war. What are we going to do here? Shall we just give in, surrender, or shall we stand up, stand strong and fight back? And I actually found this to be a really kind of rousing and inspirational film, telling this story of Winston Churchill and how he was faced with such adversity from all of his followers, really, and everyone around him. And I didn't realise this. I knew that it was like a, whoa, come on, no, never surrender. But what I didn't realise is that pretty much everyone around him didn't agree with him, and it was a battle. He was fighting, and almost the biggest fight he was fighting in this film was not necessarily against the Nazis, it was against his followers and the people around him, trying desperately to convince people that this was the right idea, and that it was completely the wrong decision to make a negotiation with the Nazis. And you will not believe, watching this film, unless you know a lot about your history, you will not believe how close we came to actually making a deal with the Nazis, and how close we came to actually having a kind of a Europe run by Hitler. We came dangerously close. And what this film highlights is that if it wasn't for Churchill, if it wasn't for this one man taking a stand and holding his ground and fighting back, we probably would have been destroyed, and we probably would have been taken over by the Nazis. But because of Churchill and because of his steadfast determination, what this film really highlights for me is the courage of Churchill and his unwavering spirit, his steadfast determination to stick in this one-track mind, and he is quite stubborn and belligerent and ignorant in a way, but he just has this determination. He is just steadfast. He has just got these strong, unwavering convictions and this spirit that will never break. Where, he comes close to giving in at one point in the movie, but for the majority of this film, he is determined and he is headstrong and steadfast. He's like, no, we are going to fight back. We are not going to give in. We are not going to surrender. And just that whole notion was just really inspiring to me. And obviously it's something I already knew about, but just seeing that in the movie and seeing that put across so just powerfully, and it just hitting you so much emotionally with the powerhouse performance there from Gary Oldman. It really was a tour de force performance from him. That's the best way I could describe it. And he just really brought it, and it really hit me on certain occasions. Yes, it wasn't the most groundbreaking, amazing film I've ever seen. It wasn't the best film of the year or anything, but it was a really great, really inspirational film. It was the kind of film that we really need right now, of all this shit we're dealing with in the world right now. It's the kind of film we really need, with this character of Winston Churchill fighting back against hate and tyranny, not tolerating it, not giving in, not surrendering, him making a stand, him fighting back, him inspiring the people around him, and it really hit me. It's true that the film itself wasn't as good as Gary Oldman's performance, but I do think it was a really great film, headlined with a terrific tour de force performance from Gary Oldman. This film really hit me. It was really quite inspirational and moving for me, and I thought it was actually a really great film. So overall, I'm going to give Darkest Hour 5 stars. I understand the argument people are making that the film isn't as good as the performance that Gary Oldman gives, but Gary Oldman's performance is such a big part of what makes this movie work so well. I also thought the film was really great. So there we go, that wraps up my review of Darkest Hour. Have you seen the film yet, and what did you think about it? Please let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. And if you missed my last review, be sure to go ahead and click over here to catch up on my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on all my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.